So around this time last year, I made this video discussing the new, at the time yet to be unveiled, Model 3 Performance, and excluding the naming. They didn't go with any special naming. They ended up just going with Performance. Everything I discussed in that video was right, even my price prediction. And seeing as the same thing is happening now, but with the Model Y Performance, it being spotted testing on public streets, let's do it again. Everything new that's coming, release date, price, and if it's worth it with the used Model X market being where it's at. Also real quick, just want to give you all a heads up that while we won't be discussing the legacy Model Y Performance, the deals that Tesla are offering on them just keep getting better. If you qualify for the tax credit, you can get a brand new one for sub $40,000. That's insane. And if you are taking advantage of the crazy deals that Tesla are offering, Test Stuff has you covered with our own crazy deals. 20% off all legacy Model Y accessories, all-weather floor mats, cup holder inserts, organizers, everything. It's all got to go and it will not be restocked, so this is your final chance. I'll have it all linked below. No code needed. Now, the new Model Y Performance is inherently going to be less popular than the Performance 3 was. For one, it's a mid-size SUV, which in and of itself is not going to draw the performance crowd like the 3 will. And two, well, we pretty much know everything that's coming. Just look at the Model 3 Performance upgrades over the regular 3 and apply those to the new Y. So I doubt we're gonna get as many leaks or just photo and video sightings as we did with the Performance 3. First up, exterior, as there's a reason they're still keeping it covered up. With the Performance 3, they added air slits along with a black lip to the front, but the new Y already has this. In fact, I would say the new Y's front end looks closer to the Performance 3 than the normal 3. Air slits are standard, and the lip, because the entire exterior trim is a black plastic, is already separate from the front bumper, and well, it's already black. I think that the most they'll do to the front end is make the lip more aggressive. As for the rear end, the new Performance badge along with a more aggressive diffuser. With the Performance 3, we saw Tesla add small strakes to the diffuser, and with the completely redesigned rear end on the new Y, we'll more than likely see that happen again. Which, if you all watched my refresh Model Y first drive and walk around, then you all know that I am actually a big fan of the new super beefy diffuser that Tesla has gone with. And the addition of strakes, I think, will make it look even better. Lastly, for the rear end, the spoiler, which, knowing Tesla, they will just copy paste the spoiler from the Performance 3. However, as the scoop on the new Y is already much more aggressive than the previous Y, and the fact that it's its own panel, it's no longer attached to the trunk arms, which people have theorized that they could make this entire piece a carbon fiber spoiler. Here's what that potentially could look like, and to be honest with you, I'm all for this. As for the rest of the exterior, lower suspension along with the new warp wheels are expected. The warp wheels will be the 21-inch configuration versus the 20s on the 3 for obvious reasons, and will bolster all the same lightweight benefits. I've seen some think that we're gonna get the Uber turbines, as that's what the testing cars have been spotted on, but they did the same thing with the Performance 3 just to try and conceal its identity. We'll also see bigger, more performance-oriented brakes over the regular Y, or at least hopefully, instead of them being just the regular brakes with caliper covers to make them appear bigger like they did a few years back. As for the interior, pretty much nothing is changing over the current Y. We will more than likely see carbon fiber on the dash, just like the 3, and maybe part of the door cards with how they have that new multi-layered design, but I wouldn't really hold my breath for that. For sure, though, we'll get carbon fiber on the dash. As for the seats, the Performance 3 does have bucket seats, but I personally don't think that we'll see that on the Performance Y. This is because around the time that Tesla announced the Performance 3 last year, they also updated the Plaid to have bucket seats. But it was just the X, not the SUV X. And seeing as the Y is just the SUV of the cheaper models and more family focused, I just don't really see them doing this. You get a Performance 3 if you want a smaller, more nimble performance car. You get a Performance Y because you have a family or space is still the biggest priority, but you still want to scratch that performance itch. I also kind of just personally hope that we don't see the bucket seats on the Y. Like, yes, I love my bucket seats in my Performance 3. And yes, for being bucket seats, they are very comfortable and, they still have cooling and heating and all that, but they are still bucket seats. And unless you weigh 80 pounds or have toothpicks for legs, normal seats are just going to be more comfortable. I do think the aesthetic of the bucket seats looks better compared to the normal seats, along with like the black piping and the badging. We'll just have to wait and see. I don't think it's a guarantee like everything else we're talking about, simply because of, well, like I mentioned, what they did with the Model X Plaid. As for under the hood, we are expecting everything from the Performance 3 to carry over. This includes V3 track mode, which features all new calibration for the powertrain while still being able to customize handling, balance, stability controls, and regenerative braking, just like in the previous V2 track mode. Adaptive suspension dampening powered by Tesla's in-house software that provides enhanced body control without sacrificing daily usability or comfort. I've preached that the Model 3 performance on 18s with the adaptive suspension set to standard is the most comfortable Model 3 that you can currently drive. We may also see a similar performance-focused chassis like what we saw on the 3, which Tesla claims is tuned to provide intuitive, razor-sharp response to driver inputs. The new V3 performance rear motor, which will give life to a faster 0 to 60, along with better sustained top-end power. Assuming the 3 is anything to go off of, we should see the 0 to 60 go from 3.5 on the previous Model Y performance to around 3.3, and the top-end 60 to 130 to go from around 13 seconds to around 10 seconds, if not a little under 10 seconds. And while you may not be able to tell that big of a difference on the 0 to 60, going from my old Performance 3 to my new one, I couldn't really tell that big of a difference, if a difference at all. The 60 to 130, you can immediately feel the difference as the car no longer just dies off after 60. As for the release date, the only thing that we really have that's concrete is just later this year. With that being said, however, if Tesla's history is anything to go off of, the Model 3 became available on January 10th in the States and the Performance on April 24th, we should be seeing the Performance sometime in May or around 3.5 months after the regular one released, which does align with how most performance trims tend to release around the summer months. My prediction is that we're going to see it anywhere from May to August. As for price, well, I remember everyone saying that I was crazy thinking that the new Model 3 Performance was going to qualify for the tax credit and be under $60,000. And well, turns out I was right for my reasoning. In fact, it's still sub $55,000. And considering the legacy Performance Y prior to them removing the ability to configure new was in the low 50s, I think it was 51.9, and the Model 3 Performance is right at 55,000 right now, the chance of the Performance Y being somewhere between 55 and 60,000 is pretty high. In fact, I would honestly bet on it being somewhere between 55 and 60,000. As once they drop the launch series, we'll probably see the long range all-wheel drive somewhere in the low 50s, and then the long range rear wheel drive somewhere in like the mid to high 40s. This is all assuming that they don't continue the launch series crap that they're currently doing where, everything's included, but it's also like $10,000 over what it should be. Now, I mentioned used X's, and because this video's topic is performance, specifically plaids, you can currently find 21 and 22 plaids in the $50,000 range right now, which in terms of price to performance is going to blow the new Model Y Performance out of the water. However, you are going to be looking at cars with 40 to 50,000 miles, and they're going to be hardware 3. If you were to bump that up to a 23, though it's like later 23s, I believe you're going to have to do your homework on that one. You will be able to get hardware 4. And assuming you're still fine with like higher 40, 50,000 plus mileage, you're probably actually not going to pay that much more to get that over a 21 or a 22, pushing into the mid to high $60,000 range. And when it comes to mileage, the X's have a 150,000 mile battery and drivetrain warranty versus 120,000 that we'll see on the Performance Y. I genuinely do think there are situations where a used plaid would make more sense. Maybe you need more room as the X is bigger. Maybe your kids are older and they would just prefer captain chairs versus the Model Y seating. Maybe you really like the performance. A plaid will always put a smile on your face. Or maybe you don't qualify for the tax credit, so you would already be spending close to $60K. What's another, $5 to $10 grand to get a bigger, faster car? In terms of hardware, The X is just a better vehicle than the Y, even the new Y, excluding two things we'll talk about in just a second. However, in terms of software, it's really no surprise that Tesla is catering more toward the 3Y and now Cybertruck. They're one big screen in the center vehicles. Have you seen how you have to choose an auto park spot? It's not done via the touchscreen. You have to scroll through different parking spots with the scrolling wheel. There's no tire pressure or trip cards. You got to go into the settings for that. No seamlessly touching the battery percent to swap to miles because it's on the non-touchscreen screen. Yes, these are small things, but it's more than likely only going to get worse as Tesla continues to focus on their money makers over the X and by extension the S. The two things hardware wise that the X is not beating the Y over, and to be honest with you, one of them could be a deal breaker for you. The first thing is interior lighting, which apparently Tesla actually updated, like I guess the internals of the doors and everything to incorporate some form of interior ambient lighting, but they just never did. And two, a front bumper camera, which once you've used one, you kind of understand how nice it is, which both of these things are more than likely going to be addressed in Tesla's refresh that they have coming later this year for the S and X. But if you are looking at buying used, you're not going to get these. It's honestly a tough choice and one that I can't really give a definitive yes or no answer to. I think if I had a larger family, didn't care about having something older, and didn't want to see my car everywhere because let's face it, there's a lot more Ys than X's on the road, then I'd probably gravitate toward the X. If I had a smaller family, wanted the new light bar cyber cab design, and didn't care about seeing my car everywhere, then I'd probably go with the Y. Personally, you already know I will be getting a Performance Y whenever they become available, simply because it's relatable and Ys perform a lot better on YouTube versus X's. Like just look up X, like X Model X videos, and look up Model Y videos, like viewership is drastically different. Though once the Y is in the garage alongside the 3, I will more than likely be looking to finally add a Plaid, but that's a video for a different day. Let me know your thoughts on the new Performance Y. Is this what you're waiting for? Do you want it to have the bucket seats found in the Performance 3? If you are new around here and you want to see more Tesla related stuff in your YouTube feed, then feel free to subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.